Hi, I'm Lenora. I'm creator of The Bitchy Bookkeeper.
Hi, I'm Kristen Tetzi. I'm author of The Age of the Child.
Hi, I'm Isabel, founder and firebrand of The Uprising Spark. And we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. In today's episode, we have Raif. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
Raif and Connie. And they are in London. They're coming all the way from London. And we have them over today because you guys are a Childfree couple. You recently started a blog and you've been writing about your adventures as a couple. And so, it's a pleasure having you guys here. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, were you guys child-free before you met, or was it something that you kind of decided as a couple?
Yeah, we are independently child-free. So I have never had the desire to have children. And as long as I know, Raif's not ever had. We've known each other for 15 years. We've been friends since we were teenagers. So not that that's something that we were talking about then, but when we reconnected when we were older, that was something that was we were always pretty up front and knew about each other.
Yeah, it was one of the first things we kind of discussed when a relationship was on the cards was we discussed a lot of the fundamentals when we were kind of dating.
When we were just friends.
We were lucky enough to kind of agree on child-free separately and then bring it into our relationship from the start.
That's great. I wonder, how did that conversation go? How were you just casually talking about children and then you were like, ew, no? Or was it something?
I think with us, because we were friends before, our relationships was a lot easier in that sense because we talked a lot as friends before we got into the kind of romantic side of our relationship. So we were seeing each other, not regularly, but meeting up for lunch in between work for kind of 6 months before anything romantic happened. So in that time, we spoke about all the sort of fundamentals, not even thinking it would turn into a relationship for us, but just what we wanted out of a relationship. And children never came up, fortunate enough for both of us.
Now, in your immediate peer group, not online, are your friends confused by your choice? Has anyone judged your choice, or is it just that because they have kids, it's hard to find time to do things together because they're so busy, and so you're looking for other people that way, or because of that?
I think a lot of the time it's just that now that they have children in their lives, it's we're on different paths. Certainly financially, time-wise, it's a very fundamental thing with relationships. It's easy for us to maintain friendships individually, but it's more as a couple. So it's difficult to do things with couples that have children because our priorities are different. We are happy to spend a lot more time, a lot more money doing things that we enjoy at this time in our life, whereas people in our certain circle have young children. So it's not like they can really leave them with babysitters, etc. at this time. So it's really split our sort of circle, if you like. So it's been and it's not that I think because we're quite young, they split us kind of either we're going to change our mind or it's they kind of ignore the subject now.
There was something else I was going to say, but I'll get back to it.
Are you both open with your families about your choice not to have children?
Yes. Yeah, I've never wanted kids, so that was never on the table for me. And my family are expecting me to change my mind at all. Raif's family are a bit more I think they'd like to think that we'd change our minds, that we're only young. So, nobody wanted kids. No one was supposed to want, when we got married, we were 28 and no one wants children at 28. It's fine. You're still young. And as the years go on, it's like, just see what happens, you don't have to, which I find quite reckless.
Yeah.
Because we're married, don't plan for a pregnancy. But, people that want grandchildren aren't always the most rational people. So it's just like, I think we're lucky, certainly, compared to a lot of people that get a really hard time from their families. A few comments here and there, but I think that the time will tell. What I will say is that my mother-in-law, doesn't know that Raif's had a vasectomy. And that, and that's more, if we're honest, because I think she believes that my influence on our marriage is why we're not having children, when actually we come at it and meet in the middle equally. It's a factor why when we met each other, we clicked so well and knew that this was going to be the relationship that we wanted to commit to. So it's more out of wanting mine and her relationship to stay on an even keel. We don't have to justify our choices to her. What she doesn't know can't hurt her. And the truth that as time goes on, and there aren't any children, she'll know that was our choice, and that's fine. But for the time being, it doesn't hurt for her to.
Yeah, it's just more of a keep the peace situation than everyone else we talk to knows about it. It's just
my family are aware.
Yeah, so. And it's more of to not affect our relationship, because we still have a good relationship.
And we still have those conversations about not wanting children and that we don't plan to. It's just that idea of the permanence for her that it's easier for us to omit.
And even if he were to say this was 100% my choice and I would have done it regardless of whether Connie were in the picture, or would she just have a hard time no matter what, believing that it wasn't Connie's fault?
And I think she's sort of got to a stage now where when she's thinking logically about it, she knows that we've got a good life. She knows that we're happy. She knows that we've made the right decisions for us, but it's after a couple of drinks and like around a dinner table or whatever. That's the kind of time when the odd comment comes out, and that's a time where we have to be sort of, and I find this a lot with child-free couples, if you have to kind of try and be the bigger people sometimes, and certainly in family situations, just to keep the peace, because both of us have been there and had those arguments a number of times, and to avoid repeating them, we kind of take the view that we'll just be the bigger people, let them think that we'll change our mind in 10 years, and if it never happens, it never happens.
Have you found it strengthens your resolve? I mean, obviously, you having a vasectomy is answers that question to a point, but you both had individual lives where you were both individually child-free, and then you came together, and now being a team, as it were, do you find that there's strength in numbers? Do you find that it just solidifies everything that much more, knowing, okay, I'm with somebody that supports my choice, that understands my choice? There's a lot of our viewers, of course, that are single or searching for somebody who could help support them in their decision to not have children. We hear about, everyone kind of experiences that. So from an individual standpoint to now a couple standpoint, how has it just made your resolve stronger for this lifestyle, or more inner peace in a way, if it has?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really doubted my decision, but it is really gratifying, when you meet any other child-free person, as you all have experienced yourself, to just sort of have that nod of understanding and just like, I don't have that yearning, I don't have that need in my life. And so when you have it, as a woman, it's very difficult. I don't want to be like, I've got a man to back me up and that supports my decision. I'm very wary of kind of going down that path, because, I felt like this before I had a husband, and that stands alone. But yes, it is validating to myself, and I think other people, when I say, well, actually, my husband and I are choosing not to have children, or however the conversation goes.
I also, from like a male perspective, I guess I've been in relationships previously where the other person has initially been child free and changed their mind, or kind of was leaning on the having children, and kind of going along the lines that it will happen eventually. And I've been quite certain in my decision for a long time, and it was certainly something that brought us closer together right at the beginning. But I do sort of value how lucky we are in that, and that our friendship before enabled us to have those conversations, because I think as a single child-free person, it is very difficult. And
at what point do you have those conversations?
If you don't know each other to the level that we did previously, when do you have those conversations? It's not exactly like you can put it on your dating profile, although I'm sure people do. But it's having those conversations must be extremely difficult, and we've been very fortunate.
But with the vasectomy, because we read a lot about how frustrating it is for women when doctors refuse to give them a sterilization procedure because they're afraid they might change their minds or whatever reason. And I know from your blog that it also happened to you. Like they don't like to give them until you're 30 or until you have a kid, I would assume.
Yeah.
So you went to a different kind of hospital, and then they did agree to do it. But were you ever denied?
Yeah. So the way it works here is that you can receive a vasectomy on the National Health Service, so it would be a free procedure. But to meet those criteria, you have to be, if you're child-free, you have to be 30 to start the process. And once you've started the process, it can take up to 6 months to a year of regularly going to the doctor to convince them that this is the choice I've made, this is where I want to go. I went in at 24, asked questions about it, said this is what I want to do, because I think as a man, you really have, the only control you have is a vasectomy. Otherwise, except for being celibate, you're leaving it up to someone else a lot of the time. There are certain steps you can take, but I know a number of my own friends that have had accidents that have had, and where babies have been kept, and it's just not, I didn't feel comfortable with that situation. So, and I made that clear to my doctor. So the approach we went, and we were fortunate enough to be in the situation where we could afford to, was to go privately. And when you go privately there, because you're paying, which is kind of an alien concept, at least here, they didn't ask as many questions. It was a very straightforward process, and they were really good. And what I was surprised, the procedure in itself is very minimal. It's not very intrusive. It's very straightforward. I mean, I was in and out in sort of 20 minutes, and like the quote I always use is that I've had worse trips to the dentist. It's not a big deal. And since that blog post came out, I've had a couple of men reach out to me, both asking about the procedure and people who have been denied as well. And it can be done, and I know there's some stigma for men around vasectomies, because I feel like men treat the child window because it's a lot longer than it is in women. You have men that have children when they're a child free till they're 60, and then all of a sudden they have a baby. And I feel like if you have made this decision to remain child free, then a vasectomy is kind of the way you validate it to yourself. I've made this decision, and this is what I'm going to stick with.
And responsibility for it.
Yeah, but even now, when I had the people I've told I've had a vasectomy, they go into, oh well, it's reversible. Well, I wouldn't have gone through a surgical procedure if that was my plan. So in terms of the critics, it doesn't sort of stop that anyway. But it's certainly for us, it's been a massive freedom, and as well, you don't realise, well, men, I didn't realise how much of an effect the contraceptives was having on Connie, and that has been a sort of a plus that we didn't expect. That coming off those contraceptives has made her much healthier and feel much better about herself.
I can't recommend it enough. It's so much less invasive than the female equivalent, and I would imagine in the States, and certainly if you were to go privately, a lot more expensive. The recovery period and stuff, you know, it in our situation, it was the perfect solution.
I'm in Canada, and vasectomies are covered here. We have, it's pretty similar to what you have over there. If you're lining up, I'm sure there's things where we differ in our healthcare. But it is nice, speaking personally as a Canadian, to live in a place where, you know, where you can go and have your doctor's visits are covered. You know, abortions are covered here, and we have private clinics, but you know, basic health care is covered, and it's very, you know, meeting Kristen and having conversations with people who live in the States and in other countries, you really value where you live. You realize, you know, you can, when you have access to that, how important it is, how freeing it is, and it is empowering you because you both can make those decisions for yourself. It's not a whole bunch of hoops to get through. I mean, getting sterilized is still a challenge here because, like you said, like finding a doctor to a certain age that will agree, for one. We hear from people who are, you know, under 30 and still fighting, even where it is paid for. And, you know, I think, I don't necessarily have a question, but just if you can even speak to the benefits of living in a country where your health care is provided and you have access to that, because we are hearing from people all around the world, as I'm sure you are, who don't have access to that like that. And I think people don't realize how needed it is, you know, because we don't understand how it's lacking around the world, access to birth control, access to basic health care, you know, for free. Like, it's just, I wish more people knew about it. So it's great when, you know, people like yourself are speaking out, who live in an area and benefit from it, and more people need to know, especially politicians, assuming they're watching.
Right, we're both really fortunate. We've both enjoyed every extent of free sexual health care. There are they're called gum clinics, or they used to be called gum clinics, where you can teenagers from sort of as soon as you're sexually active, it's completely anonymous from your parents. If you want it to be, you can go and get completely screened. You can it's the equivalent of your Planned Parenthood, I think. And all the way through, I've had contraception paid for. I don't never think twice about going to see a doctor about anything to do with my sexual health, and I don't take it for granted. Even Northern Ireland, they don't have the like freedom to sexual medicine that we do in England. So yeah, we know how lucky we are. And I can't imagine how difficult it is to have for that to be an added expense on top of how stressful that can often be.
And what about abortions? Are they easily accessible in the UK?
Yeah, we've both benefited from that system, not with each other, but separately, and have used it. I didn't have any problems. I didn't have to have a load of counselling sessions. There's a clinic, Mary Stopes, the same people that performed Raif's vasectomy. And it's not, I don't know, I think like how horrendous that situation is. If you've got to run the gauntlet, if you've got to travel out of state, if you've got to cross a border, like in Ireland, they've just repealed it in the south of Ireland, but still in the north of Ireland. If you're caught coming to England to have an abortion, you'll do time. You know, it's illegal. It's against the law. So yeah, we're both. I can speak for the health system here for abortions to say that. It was readily available, completely
And I don't think here you have the stigma around it. There's no.
It is just sexual healthcare, and I'm not saying it in a cavalier manner. I don't mean to speak that it's not a choice anybody wants to have to make. I'm not being flippant in any way, but it to me it was a trip to the doctor like any other, and it was readily available, and it was treated as such. There was no stigma attached to it whatsoever. We're very lucky.
Even with that accessibility, like you said, it's a decision no one has to want. Nobody is excited about the idea of abortion.
No.
Like no medical procedure is exciting.
Right.
But even with that ease of access to that, before having that final vasectomy and knowing, okay, this is done, we don't have to worry anymore, birth control gone, you as the guy are totally cleared. What did it feel like before and after? I mean, like how you approached sex and how you felt waiting to make sure, because even if you're on hormonal birth control, there's still a chance of getting pregnant. Something
Right.
could go wrong. And so at least in my experience, there was always a little bit of, and then there comes a point when you're I just want to know how you felt before and then how you felt after and how that affected both of you when it was finally decided.
I think on my side, it was certainly before we had it done, anytime Connie was even a little bit sick, pregnancy was the first question I asked.
More than one occasion. That was definitely, you're not pregnant, are you? And I was like, no, that's not definitely never been a thing.
And since we've been together, at least in that time before we had sex, we were both very conscious of the need to use contraception. There are a number of times when either Connie was on medication where we switched back to condoms, for example, just to be extra careful. And even afterwards, like we took the maximum amount of time before we stopped using contraception just to make sure that it had taken and we were clear. Yeah. But it's just the freedom and the peace of mind. I mean, I can't really describe it as anything. Like beforehand, it's always in the back of your mind. Even in a relationship, I mean, it's hard being single, but in a relationship, we didn't want to go through an abortion or that path. So having the vasectomy really just freed up both of us. And then the hormones were Connie was struggling with the hormones anyway from the contraception. So it really just made our life so much easier.
And I don't know, I won't speak for you ladies, but for a long time you think sort of the deed's done and you go, oh God, did I take my pill? Have I taken my pill today? Oh God. And it actually takes quite a long time for you to get out of that. You have that thought and you go, oh, so you know that you have it's really, and it's literally like that, and you kind of laugh out loud and you go, oh, I don't ever have to worry about that again.
It frees up a lot of energy for you to focus on other things like what you want to do and, your work and traveling and that sort of thing. I think people don't realize, we all get a lot of crap for not wanting to have kids from certain people, certain groups, whether they're in person or online. And I'm of the belief that, investing in yourself, investing in your dreams, investing in what makes you a good person is super important. And I don't believe it's valued as much as it should be, especially when people compare parenthood to be the end all be all of life. Mm-hmm. But when you no longer have that, you're not worried yet. It frees up so much energy for you to focus on things that are important to you, which I applaud because I think it's awesome to invest in yourself. I am all for it. And I'll just clap. I don't have a question. I guess if you want to speak to that too, it's just the freedom you have to live your life, which for the viewers out there, it is perfectly acceptable and awesome. So not to talk anybody in or out of things, but you're an example of that.
I would say that I've got girlfriends that are under 30 having to plan 5 years ahead because of their need to plan children. You know, they're sacrificing trips to Costa Rica because their boyfriend's putting pressure on them because he wants a baby by the time they're 32. These are things I can't do. I feel I'm old. I'm an old lady in a 30-year-old's body, but I still feel so young. There's still so much to do, and I can't imagine having the hindrance of budgeting and going without, and all of the things that you miss out on for someone that doesn't even exist yet. You know, you have to do that once they're here, let alone planning and losing the last years of your 20s and the early years of your 30s, frantic about this baby that, you know, this person you don't even know yet. You don't even know they're going to be nice. So yeah, I just and
I think in terms of the freedom, it's we are very conscious of how much freedom we do have, and we set ourselves goals, and we're very goal orientated in that way, even if it's from small to big goals. And every year we kind of say, okay, well, we want to do this year, and we know that it's the only people stopping us from doing that is us. We both work sort of quite high level jobs, and we're kind of planning to step away from that in sort of 5 or 6 years. So we're in a very focused place right now, and I couldn't imagine having to give up any of that for children. It's just not in our DNA, I guess. But what I would say is, I think from people I know, men and female, is that the worst place you can be with this decision is sitting on the fence. You need to decide either way, because I know a lot of people that will wave a child-free flag but still don't push themselves because they are still putting money aside just in case, or they're putting years aside just in case. And really, if you make a child-free choice, then you need to embrace that and move forward with it, because you make the worst decisions while sitting on the fence. I mean, if you come down on having children, then plan it, have them.
Thrive.
Yeah.
Do you?
But if you don't, and you want to be child-free, then treat it the same way. Plan out your 5 years.
When you're not going to have children, you've got to have something. You've got to have something to talk to each other about. You've got to have something to drive you. You've got to have something to be passionate about, and all of those things give you so much opportunity. The world's our oyster. We're 30 years old, so we now have got what do we want to do for the next 10 years, or what do we do for the next 10 years that means that we can do for the freedom that we've got. It's I can't look at parents and see that giving me the level of gratification that the idea of building our future and not having the responsibility of children can compare.
With your friends, you said you have friends who are younger and they're already saving for future children, and they're kind of limiting what they can do because of these future children. Do you get the impression that they're planning for these kids because they desperately, passionately want them, or is it just part of, well, I'm this age and so I've got to have kids at this age? And if that's the case, have you ever talked to them? You know, they know that you don't have kids. They know it's an option, but do they know it's really an option? Have you talked to them about why they want kids, or like if it's something they really, really want?
Absolutely. I beat my drum, and I let them know, you know, you are not a baby making machine. The life script it is not gospel. You don't have to stick to it. You're more, there's so much more to life. You don't have to have kids. So if your boyfriend is pressuring you because that's what he thinks he needs to do, you need to. Everyone needs to stop wasting each other's time, really, and that's what I'm. And that's what I thought. If you're not 100% sure, do not do it, and do not waste everyone's time pretending that you're going to entertain it, because I think. You know, the same way if a woman wanted children, she's like, right, well, you can't leave me on for 10 years and then say, oh, I don't want kids because there's only a finite amount of time kind of thing. And I just really hammer it down, that if don't let society or your partner pressure you into doing the one thing that you can never undo, because it's the only thing in life you can't take back, and you, if you're not really committed to it and you're not going to really really love it, then don't do it. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down, is that they do it because they think they should, and it's just because that's what people have done for so long now, and it makes for a lot of unhappy parents and a lot of unhappy children.
I think on the male side as well, which is something I've been really surprised about when I talk to people who I've known for years, or friends that you kind of see now and again, it's the idea of legacy from a male perspective, and it's something I talk about quite a lot. And having on the male side, producing a child is very easy. You don't take part in the bearing. I mean, raising a child is a different issue, but actually producing one is really straightforward. And to have that be your legacy or your ultimate ambition, it's kind of a false start in the sense, and it's like
it's a low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar to set yourself, really. And you see a lot of people who have, when they were young, have all these ambitions and these dreams, and then they then have children and put all that aside. And you see people who could have been, and I know certain people could have been great, could have gone on to done amazing things, but have really halted their life for it. And I mean, if it's worth it, then yes. But if it's, and you were 100% that is what you wanted to do, but to give it up for something you were 70% sure about seems like a big ask to me.
And that's kind of what you tell people.
Absolutely. We couldn't agree more. We're all like, yeah. So guys, unfortunately we're running out of time, but before we let you go, we wanted to ask you, where is the Goodlett's blog going? What do you want to do with it? What do you want to achieve with it in the short term and medium term?
Well, we really wanted to sort of create a community of other child-free people, because we struggle. Separately is fine, but as a couple, to meet other couples that are child-free, just to share our own experiences, really. And so in the short term, and we have had a few people reach out and say, like, hi, we're in Surrey, come and have a coffee, which has been really nice, and we're gonna do that. So, but long term,
yeah, I think we've always done quite a lot of writing. Last year we wrote the first draft of our novel, and we're going to be working on that next year. And we kind of, the blog was just a way of us to carry on. We kind of pushed ourselves so hard last year producing the first draft that we kind of never wanted to write again. So the blog was a way of writing something that we cared about, that we were passionate about, but also something that we could,
a palate cleanser.
Yeah, that we could write easily and as well grow within the community and get to know different people. And that's already happened, really. We've met some amazing people, and they've shared their stories with us. We're quite open and honest in our blog. I think it's not, and people seem to have connected with that. We kind of let it all on the line for people to read about, and that's kind of how we are with each other as well. And going forward, I'd just like to see it grow a little bit. We're trying to make a sort of foundation so that when we do give up our day jobs, we've got something that we can continue to grow.
That's awesome. All right. Well, to our audience, we're going to leave you guys the links to the Goodlett's blog down here and their social media, so you can follow them as well. Thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure having you with us. And everyone else, click on the seal somewhere around here so you can follow us in our YouTube channel. And we are on all social media, but most active on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.